it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a Christmas in July card using Lawn Fawn's treat cart add-on tacos, treat cart add-on coffee, and critters in the desert. So I've stamped those images on Catherine Pooler Favorite White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I'm going to start with my red combo, which is going to be R22, R24, and R29, and I'll do every other stripe on the awning of my treat cart and every other bulb on my string of lights. I'm doing that with the R29 first, laying in my shadows, and then blending out with the mid-tone, the R24. Then I'll go in with my highlight shade, the R22, and just fill in any remaining white space, making sure to go over the edge of the previous shade and kind of pull that into the lighter tone so that I can eliminate any harsh lines. And then I'm just going to hop around and do a few of these little accessory images in this combo. I'm going to do the label on the chip bag. I'll do a little bottle of sriracha on that tray of sauces. Then I'll do the lid on the second jar and the label on the third jar. I'm also going to do those two little blooms in the top left corner. Those are the flowers for the cacti. And then I am going to add a little bit of color to my taco, to the filling that's kind of spilling over the edges. So the bottom section could either be like beef or tomatoes, but I decided to go with tomatoes because I didn't want to use any brown on this card. So then I'm going to switch to a green combo, and that is going to be YG41 and YG45. I'm going to do my little agave plant with this combo, and also the little scallops at the top of the taco, which I am making to be the lettuce. I will do the wrapper on my churro, just trying to find other ways to introduce the red and green theme since this is a Christmas card. And then I'm going to go back and do a second layer on that agave plant just to give it a little bit more contrast. I'll do the center band on the bottom part of the treat cart, but I realized I was going to need to introduce a third color in there, so I will be adding an extra shade in just a minute. For now, I'm just starting with that YG45 on both the left and the right, blending toward the center with the YG41. And then after consulting my Copic color chart, I decided to bring in the YG11 for the center. And I really like how that combo turned out. That YG11 just added a nice little bit of brightness to it because it has a slight yellow undertone. So I actually went back and added that to my churro wrapper as well. And then I'm going to do the third little jar of sauces to be salsa verde. And I'm going to do the chalkboard sign in this combo as well, placing those shadows down toward the bottom and then blending up toward the top with the lighter shades. And I also put some shadow on the legs of that clapboard sign because they would be cast in shadow. Then I'm going to switch to a darker green combo using G21, G24, and G28 for my two cacti. I wanted those to be more of like a Christmas green, kind of resembling a Christmas tree, so that's why I went with the darker shades. So on both of those, I started with the G28 and added a little shadow to the inside of the arms where the sun would not be able to hit as much, and then also to the outer edges so that I can leave a highlight in the center, which will just help it look a little bit more rounded. So I'm blending out that G28 with the G24, and then I'll come in with that G21 and fill in the rest for a nice highlight. Then I'm going to switch to some silver tones. I'm going to use T0, T1, and T3 for the rest of the base of my treat cart, just so it would look like it's made of metal. And I'm starting with the T3 for my shadows. I'll blend that out with the T1. On the lower part, I'm blending toward the center, just like I did with the green section, but on the kind of arms that are holding it up, the poles that are holding it up, I put the shadow up under the awning because that just seemed to make the most sense to me. Then I'm going to switch to a slightly darker gray combo. I'm keeping that T3 and adding in T5 and T7, and I will do the wheels on the treat cart and also the handle, and then I'm going to do the chalkboard sign. But I quickly realized that that T7 was a little bit dark for that chalkboard sign, because if I use too much of that, you won't be able to make out the words. And so I really kept that very close to the edge, and the same with the T5 on that. And then I'm going to use mostly the T3 in the center and really kind of push back that T5. And then I'll also add in T1 to lighten that up even further, because I want to make sure that you can read the menu. And there are different options that you can stamp in that chalkboard sign. I just chose that one because we had the churro that I wanted to color, because I love churros. I also used the T5, T3, and T1 for the little tray with the sauce dishes. And then I'll switch to a cream colored combo using E000, E50, and E51 for the sand at the base of the cacti. And I'll also use this combo for my two bears because I wanted them to look like polar bears, again, since this is a Christmas card. And I am starting with that E51 on all of those, blending out with the E50, and then adding a little bit of that E000. But for the bears, I'm also going to leave some white space so that they really do look white and just have a little bit of a creamy undertone. I will do every other stripe on my awning for my treat cart and every other light bulb on my string of lights. So both of those will be red and white. And then I am also going to do the chip bag, the main part of the chip bag to just be white, and I will do the label on the sriracha. I'm going to bring in some golden yellow for my taco shell. I'm using YR20, YR21, and YR23. And I am going to do 2 layers on that just to darken that up a bit and make it a bit more saturated. And then I also use that for the churro. Then I will switch to YR12 and YR16 to do the last little bits of my taco, which are going to be the cheese. And then I'll also do that last little jar of sauce so that it's hot sauce. Then I'll bring in my rosy cheek combo, which is R11, R20, and R22 to just make my polar bears look a little extra cheerful, and I think it just adds a nice whimsical touch. So I did the R22 first, blended out with the R20, and then the R11, and trimmed these images out with their matching dyes. For my background, I am starting with a piece of Bristol smooth surface cardstock, and I am going to do the simplest background that I think I have ever done. I am just taking a little bit of antique linen distress oxide ink, and I am going to do a simple watercolor wash at the top half of the card, making it a little bit darker down at the bottom to resemble some sand, and then a little bit lighter at the top to resemble just like the background, the sky, and maybe some rocks or whatever behind it. But I just wanted it to be all this kind of creamy tone. I didn't want to introduce any blue since we didn't have that color in our coloring of our images. So I'll set that aside to dry, and then I'm going to work on my sentiment. I've got a scrap of lobster cardstock and a scrap of noble fur cardstock, both from Lawn Fawn. And I am going to use my Feliz ABC's alphabet dies to spell out two words. So on the lobster cardstock, I'm going to spell out the word Feliz, and I'm just taping those into place with a little bit of Post-it tape, and then I'll run those through my die cutting machine, add those to a little dish that I can set off to the side. And then on the noble fur cardstock, I'm going to spell out the word Navidad. So together it will say Feliz Navidad. I'm going to have to do just the first 5 letters at once, and then I need the A and the D to finish it off. So I'll run those through a second time, and then I can add those letters to my little dish as well. Then I want to do some stamping on the inside of my card, and when I figured out what I wanted to place on the inside, I actually placed it a little bit too high. So rather than having to move all of that down, I just moved my card base up so that it stamps more in the middle, and I'm doing that in some jalapeno ink. And now I'm ready to start assembling, so I'm going to take that background and I'm going to add a bunch of liquid glue to the back of that because it did warp a little bit from the water, and I will glue that to my card base. So the card was made out of Lawn Fawn speckled eggshell cardstock, scored and folded to a standard A2 size card. And then I've got these 2 pieces of pattern paper that actually came in one of my Lawn Fawn orders. So this is actually cut down from the full size 12 by 12 sheets of the favorite flannel cardstock. And I have just cut that down so that I have a block down at the bottom and then a thin strip up at the top, and I've popped both of those up with foam tape so that the watercolor wash part is recessed. Now I can start adding my images, and I'm going to work on this treat cart first since that's the largest image and it needs to be kind of located in the center of the scene. So I want to make sure I have that just where I want it before I put anything else down. I'm going to take the front-facing polar bear and add him into there so that the foam tape kind of grabs a hold of him, and then I added another little piece behind his head to make sure that he is well supported. And then on the left side of that, kind of tucked behind it a little bit, I'm going to add one of the cacti. And then down in front of that, I will add the chalkboard sign. So I'm just adding a little bit of foam tape to the back of that so I can pop that up, and I'll tuck that under the handle of the treat cart and just layer those images so it gives the scene a little bit more depth. And then the other cacti is going to go on the opposite side of the card. So I'm just grabbing that sideways facing polar bear to figure out the placement and where exactly I wanted that to go. And then I'll glue that down on the right. And I'll add a bit of foam tape to the back of that polar bear. Before I glue him down, I'm going to take my Cutter Bee scissors and just add a little slit to his arm on the side, on the right side, so that I can take this little chip bag and tuck that up under his paw so that it looks like he's holding on to it. And then I will tuck a little sliver of foam tape under the corner of that chip bag too, so that that is well supported. I'll take that string of lights and add a little dot of liquid glue behind each little bulb so that I can hang that on the green center portion on the bottom of my treat cart. Then I'll take that little trio of sauces and I'm going to add a tiny square of foam tape between the polar bear and the pole of the treat cart to his left. And then I can add the sauces right over top of that so they are also well supported. And then in his other hand, I'm going to add the taco. I'll add the churro to the hand of the other polar bear. And I realized that was going to need a tiny little piece of foam tape as well down at the bottom edge. So I just added that and then just use liquid glue for the rest of it. I'll take those two little cactus blossoms and add those to the tops of the cacti so that they also look really nice and festive with their red and green colors for this Christmas card. And then I've got that little agave, so I'm just figuring out the placement. I decided to put that down in front, kind of in the empty space between the polar bear and the front wheel of the treat cart. So again, I just added a little piece of foam tape into that space. Sometimes it's easier to add it directly to the card rather than try to get it exactly right on the back of an image when you're working in like a tight little space like that. So now I'm going to bring in all of my letters, and I'm going to start with the bottom row, which is the Navidad, and I'm going to just lay those out so that I know how I want to have them placed on the card. And then I'll start picking them up with my EK Success reverse tweezers, adding a little bit of liquid glue to the back with my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue and gluing them down into place. And I'm going to start with the I in the center, since we do have 7 letters, and then just work my way on either side from there. So this card is actually for our current Lawn Fanatics Challenge, which is Christmas in July, which is why I am doing a Christmas card in the middle of summer. But whenever I do a Christmas in July card, I like to do a warm weather theme, just so I don't have to do anything that has like snow or anything like that. I still want to keep to the weather that we're having currently. So in the past, I've done Santa on vacation, I've done mermaids under the sea, I've done fish under the sea, I've turned snowmen into sandmen, I've done the critters in the desert, and yeah, so today I just thought it would be fun to do this treat cart add-on taco, because this is the first chance that I'm getting to play with it, and, you know, do like a maybe Southern California type Christmas card, something like that. And so, you know, my oldest son lives in LA, for those of you who don't know, but he is currently visiting us for 3 weeks, so I'm super excited to have him home. But just seemed kind of like appropriate to use this treat cart for a Christmas card and do the custom sentiment with the traditional Spanish Christmas greeting. And he actually says that it feels hotter here back home in Pennsylvania than it has been in LA. I don't know if it's the humidity or what, but it has been really hot here lately. But I'm just going to add that final little dot to the top of the eye and make sure that I have it going in the same direction as the one below, because they are kind of like elongated. They're almost like oval shape. I cut down another piece of Noble Fur cardstock with the middle size of the Lawn Fawn stitched scalloped borders, and I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to the back of that, and I'll place that right at the top edge of that lower section of pattern paper, so that it just kind of frames that area up nicely. I'll just hold that in place for a second so that glue has time to dry. And then I am going to take a very skinny little strip of the same cardstock to place at the bottom edge of the top section of pattern paper. And I just lifted up the top of the treat cart so that I could tuck it behind. I also felt like there was some empty space between the taco and the cactus on the right. So I stamped out warm wishes from the treat cart add-on coffee and put that inside a speech bubble from all the speech bubbles. And now I am going to add some sparkle to this card. All Christmas cards need some sparkle. So I am taking my Stardust Stickles and adding that here and there. I put it on the light bulbs, on the cactus blossoms. I put a tiny bit on the label of the chip bag, but I didn't want to cover up the words, so I wiped most of it away. And then I did it on the stripes of the awning on the treat cart and the center of the wheel on the bottom, and then I'm going to put it on the lower kind of fourth of each of my die cut letters for my sentiment. And that is going to finish this one off, so I will lift that up so you can see it in a bit more detail, hopefully catch some of that sparkle and shine, and give you another peek at the inside. I love that little scorpion with his bowl of nachos. If you enjoyed this card, please be sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. I love to hear from you. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell if you want to be alerted when I post new videos. All of the products that I use will be listed and linked in the description bar below in case you'd like to pick up anything for yourself. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye-bye!